The 9959th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Israel and Turkey to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. On behalf of the Council, I welcome His Excellency Mr. Hakan Fidan, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Turkey. I propose that the Council invite the representative of the observer state of Palestine to the United Nations to participate in this meeting in accordance with the provisional rules of procedure and the previous practice in this regard. There being no objection, it is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in this meeting. Mr. Tom Fletcher, Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, and Ms. Catherine Russell, Executive Director, United Nations Children's Fund. It is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I also invite His Excellency Mr. Stavros Lambrinidis, Head of the Delegation of the European Union to the United Nations, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Item 2 of the agenda. I now give the floor to Mr. Tom Fletcher.
Mr. President, I want to remind this Council why we are briefing you today. The General Assembly gave us a humanitarian mandate in Resolution 46182 and a set of principles that you as member states have asked us to uphold: humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. That means aid must go where needs are greatest and without discrimination. It means we answer to civilians in need, not the warring parties. Our mandate is also to advocate for international humanitarian law, not just to report to you on what we witness, but so that you, this Council, can take action, even when those responsible would rather silence us. Mr. President, we are beyond vocabulary to describe conditions in Gaza, so let me instead share facts. Food is running out. Those seeking it risk being shot. People are dying trying to feed their families. Field hospitals receive dead bodies, and medical workers hear stories firsthand from the injured, day after day after day. Starvation rates among children hit their highest levels in June, with over 5,800 girls and boys diagnosed as acutely malnourished. Last week, amid this hunger crisis, children and women were killed in a strike while waiting for the food supplements to keep them alive. And Hamas continue to hold hostages, and we've received reports of their attacks on aid workers. The health system is shattered. Only 17 of 36 hospitals and 63 of 170 primary healthcare centers are functioning, all only partially, even as mass casualties arrive daily. In some hospitals, 5 babies share one incubator. 70% of essential medicines are out of stock. Half of all medical equipment has been damaged. Pregnant women give birth without medical care. Women and girls manage menstruation without basic sanitary supplies. Water, sanitation systems are broken. Roughly 4 of every 5 of these facilities, including water points, are now located within militarized zones or areas under displacement orders. So even if they're functional, they're out of reach for those who depend on them. Mr. President, the fuel crisis in Gaza remains at a critical threshold. Last week, Israeli authorities agreed to allow 2 trucks of fuel to Gaza per day, 5 days a week, through the Kerem Shalom crossing. And we have some indication that approvals may increase slightly. We hope these will materialize. This is the first time any fuel has been allowed to enter the Strip in 130 days, and still no petrol has been permitted, which fuels many ambulances and other critical services. 2 trucks provide a fraction of what's required to run essential life-sustaining services. And even when fuel is allowed in for humanitarian purposes, our access to storing and moving it to where it is needed is not guaranteed. Mr. President, turning to the West Bank, there is continued loss of life and livelihoods, movement restrictions, growing displacement. Over the weekend, 2 Palestinian youths were killed in a settler attack near Ramallah. 1 was beaten to death, another was fatally shot. Dozens were injured, and ambulances were blocked from reaching the wounded. Settler violence is escalating at an alarming rate, and Palestinian communities are being displaced, injured, and their property damaged. Each day this year, the UN has documented an average of 4 incidents of settler violence against Palestinians and their property. In June, 100 Palestinians were injured by Israeli settlers, the highest number in 2 decades. Mr. President, Gaza's soaring humanitarian needs must be met without drawing people into a firing line. Israel, as the occupying power, is obligated to ensure that people have food and medical supplies. But that is not happening. Instead, civilians are exposed to death and injury, forcible displacement, stripped of dignity. It is for you to draw your own conclusions. But surely, we do not need to debate whether killing civilians waiting in line for life's essentials meets the responsibility to provide for civilian needs. We're awaiting the outcome of Israel's investigation into this and earlier incidents. I hope that you will also consider whether Israel's rules of engagement incorporate all feasible precautions to avoid and minimize civilian harm in all circumstances. This means, here as elsewhere, verifying targets, giving effective advance warnings, carefully choosing tactics and weapons, and cancelling or suspending an attack if it would cause disproportionate civilian harm. Mr. President, each time that we report on what we see, we face threats of further reduced access to the civilians we are trying to serve. We face that tension everywhere, but nowhere is that tension between our advocacy mandate and delivering aid greater than in Gaza. Visas are not renewed or reduced in duration, explicitly in response to our work on protection of civilians. Security clearances are not granted for staff to enter Gaza to continue their work, and humanitarian partners are increasingly denied entry to Gaza. In 2025, 56% of the entries denied were for emergency medical teams. Of course, as you know, hundreds of aid workers have been killed, and those who continue to work endure hunger, danger, and loss, like everyone else in the Gaza Strip. Personal tragedies continue to echo through our teams and their families. This morning, another ICRC colleague was killed. I pay tribute to them all and to the courage of the work of UNICEF and other agencies inside Gaza. Thousands, including many of our colleagues who are injured, are not able to leave to seek treatment. Mr. President, let me walk you briefly through what it takes to deliver your aid, the aid you fund, into Gaza. Something as simple as a bag of flour. Before reaching the crossing into Gaza, it must clear multiple layers of approval, including customs involving several ministries. Once approved, it is scanned, loaded onto Israeli trucks, and often re-inspected at Kerem Shalom. From there, it is either moved by pre-approved Palestinian trucks up the fence road that runs along Gaza's border, or transferred to so-called sterile trucks